As an honorary SoCal gay, I spend quite a bit of time in West Hollywood, so seeing Circus of Books on Netflix is super cool. I've passed by that shop a couple of times in my day, but while the documentary itself was alright, I do think it exposes quite a bit of hypocrisy on part of the Mason family. Here are my thoughts on the documentary, the Mason family, and my gay movie review. Hey, it's Omaralexis, but you can call me Lex. Circus of Books came out on Netflix a couple of weeks ago back in April, and originally premiered at the Tribeca Film Festival back in 2019. It's the story of the famous gay porn and sex toy shop Circus of Books, which is located on Santa Monica Boulevard in West Hollywood, California. I've passed by that store so many times on the way to brunch and to the clubs, so seeing it on Netflix was pretty cool. The documentary follows the former owners of Circus of Books, Karen and Barry Mason, and how they originally came to acquire the business in 1982, expanded it, and subsequently closed this past year in 2019. The documentary itself was put together by their daughter, Rachel Mason, and I have some mixed feelings about it, to be honest. Starting with the likes, for the most part, I feel like Rachel, as the director, did a decent job of representing truthfully her family's opinions and perspectives when it comes to the gay community, without falling to nepotism. Throughout the film, Rachel makes no concessions to her family's prejudice and biases against the LGBT community, and in fact leverages them to create a dichotomy between the business and the family. This is actually a recurring theme in the film. You see, the store's owner, Karen Mason, is a devout Jewish woman. Throughout the film, we see her dedication to the faith and how she struggles to reconcile her religion with her business, specifically in running a sex shop, but not just any sex shop, a gay sex shop. To top it all off, she and her husband were running this business at a time when the United States government was on a crusade against obscenity. And that's code, of course, for a crusade against gay people at the height of the AIDS crisis. I'll touch on this a bit more later, but I feel like Rachel truthfully represented their perspectives. She could have gone the route of cutting out these negative prejudices and painting them more as straight saviors to the gay community, but she didn't, so props for that. The next big thing I liked about the documentary was how it captured the connectedness of the Los Angeles community. Now, this very well could have been unintentional, given that you can only really see this connectedness if you're a member of the LGBT community, and by this, I'm referring to Alaska Thunderfuck. Alaska is a world-famous drag queen who makes a brief cameo in the film to discuss her former employment at Circus of Books. This tidbit alone is pretty mind-boggling because today, Alaska Thunderfuck is a world-recognized icon in drag in general, but specifically for the LGBT community. I myself have attended her shows in support of organizations like Project Contrast, as well as businesses like the Chappie dating app. Alaska is quite vocal and active in the Los Angeles queer community, and at this last show I went to, she even endorsed a political candidate running here in Los Angeles for Congress. Maybe a Girl, who is a gender-fluid drag queen, is someone that I actually got to interview for the Gay Pro podcast. The strings that connect members of the Los Angeles queer community are shorter than you think. When I initially saw the documentary, I didn't expect to be a couple of degrees removed from the people in this story. It really goes to show that the queer community, even in a city as large as Los Angeles, is really quite small. Another really interesting part of the documentary was the diversification of the Circus of Books business. The opportunity to actually develop gay porn video came up when they came into contact with renowned gay porn producer Matt Sterling. Karen and Barry Mason, leveraging this connection, were able to actually expand their business and create Video 10 Productions, where they started producing their very own gay porn videos. At one point, the documentary even mentions that the manager of Video 10 Productions was actually putting out as many as 2 new videos per week. Their most notable star was Jeff Stryker, an incredibly famous porn actor in the 80s and 90s. He makes a brief appearance in the documentary and looks pretty good for his age, I will say. When they acquired the business from the previous owner in the 80s, they retained the staff, which was an incremental benefit to them learning the business, where to source product, and what their customers were looking for. One of the employees even remarks that Karen and Barry even let him choose which items and magazines to feature. Now, on to my dislikes. I feel like many of the things I liked about the documentary are in some ways also the things I didn't like about the documentary, and more specifically didn't like about the people. And a lot of this really has to do with the Mason family and their attitudes towards the business. To start, it seems like Karen Mason ran the business thinking she was above it all. She frequently cites that she really kept the business separate from her family and actually forbade her husband from ever discussing it with any of their friends, which is crazy to me. However, she maintains that she had no problem with gay people and that many of the ones that she dealt with in the day-to-day of the business were actually good people. Now, to me, this would be an acceptable approach if this was something you learned from and grew from and subsequently left behind. But that doesn't really seem to be the case with Karen Mason. The clip I mentioned of her going to the sex trade show is a more modern clip, actually. It was probably recorded in like 2017 or 2018 during the production of this documentary. And when she enters the trade show, she basically averts her eyes the entire time. She even goes up to an exhibit and says that she thinks the display would do well for us, but doesn't actually even take the time to look at it and look at the products on the display. And this is like a whole exchange in the documentary where she says, yeah, I don't really like to look at the products, but from a glance, like I can tell what there is on it and I can more or less guess that these products would do well. And quickly after that exchange, she tells her daughter, okay, that's it, can we go now? She is very much uncomfortable around all of the sexual material and the queer material, despite running an entire enterprise around it. This is an attitude she didn't leave behind in the 80s and 90s. This is an attitude that she's showcasing for the camera in 2018. She maintains this vaguely prude and homophobic attitude throughout the entirety of the film, and it doesn't really seem like her character has had any tangible development in terms of her attitudes towards gay people since purchasing the business in the 1980s. It's incredibly unfortunate that she feels this way, and much of it has to do with her faith. For this reason, I am a bit understanding, but do not excuse her perspectives, especially when it comes to how her opinions and beliefs have affected her children. You can see some of this in the documentary when Rachel is having a one-on-one conversation with her younger brother Joshua. Joshua is gay, and it's his story arc that Rachel Mason uses when talking about the dichotomy between business and family to sort of blur the lines. I mentioned this a bit earlier, but this divide that Karen and Barry seem to create between the business and the family is really what allowed their otherwise straight, heteronormative family to prosper in a gay space. Essentially as straight colonizers of our gay culture, capitalizing off of gay people without reproach. It's when Joshua comes out as gay that Karen Mason has a shift in attitude and is now forced to confront the fact that, oh no, the business and the family aren't separate because I have a gay son. This was an uphill battle for Joshua, as he describes distinctly remembering gay being a bad word. More so, Rachel shares a kid's book that Joshua wrote when he was younger that describes his future wife and how his family would be as close to heaven as possible that it would be unreal. He undoubtedly grew up with many presumptions placed upon him to carry forward the family as a male, to pass on the family name, but also with a lot of pressure to also uphold the faith. He describes always wanting to have been the perfect child, but he ultimately hid away this fatal flaw from his parents, being gay. It's an unfortunate but pretty common story to hear. However, my sympathy even for Joshua is a bit limited based on his exchange with Rachel. She asks him why he didn't come to her and her world, which has always been gay and accepting. Rachel's world being the world of art, film, dance, and performance. He quickly responds to her and says her world was too gay, and it wasn't what he was ready for at the time, and actually isn't what he's ready for now. This is a vaguely homophobic remark, and Joshua undoubtedly still harbors some of the pain growing up as a closeted child with prude and highly religious parents. However, the attitude that something is too gay for a gay person is the attitude only afforded to a white, privileged gay man who hasn't needed the protection of a gay community. I have no doubts that Joshua is the type of gay person that would scoff at the underground queer ballroom community, which has historically been a safe haven for queer people of color. So all in all, the documentary itself I'd say is a 6 out of 10. The director, Rachel Mason, maintains a very objective and representative focus on her family and makes no concessions to the different negative attitudes that they have in today's modern day. However, it does rub me the wrong way to see Karen and Barry Mason sort of put on a pedestal for their contributions to the gay community. I see their contributions more as a colonization of our gay culture and a profiteering of it. There was no legitimate examination of how the Masons supported the LGBT community or their employees during the AIDS crisis, if at all, and no evidence of them using their platform to advocate against the injustices happening to their customers. Sure, they march in parades and they're members of PFLAG, but ultimately they only got into the business for the money. Now, it is fine since business is business. I am curious to know what our community would be like in Southern California had the Masons not acquired Circus of Books and instead let another company acquire it, preferably a queer company. Or more so, what would the community be like if they allowed Circus of Books to go out of business and another queer-owned company to take its place? Fortunately, Circus of Books is now Chi-Chi LaRue's Circus, a queer-owned business, carrying forward the legacy of Circus of Books. There have been some drastic changes, and it is now an out and proud business with huge see-through glass windows for everyone to see what's happening inside, rather than hiding in the shadows. In this way, Circus of Books has been given new life and will continue on in our gay community. That's about it for now, but if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up, let me know what you think in the comments, and make sure to subscribe. Also, don't forget to check out thegaypro.com for a ton more content. We'll talk next time.